We have already touched briefly on your legendary interview with Lance Armstrong back in 2001 at that hotel. Could you just expand on that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, the 2001 interview with Lance was actually funny almost, but it's only funny in hindsight. At the time I didn't think it was funny because I wrote a line in the book which is, I was high on the ecstasy of sanctimony, Philip Roth line. And I was going there all sanctimonious, asking Lance all these doping questions and talking about, questions being hit with the dead bat. I would say to Lance, Lance, what do you know about cycling history and doping? And he'd say, not very much. And I'd say, well, you surely heard the name Tom Simpson. And he said, yeah, kind of vaguely. I said, well, Tom Simpson died on Mont Ventoux, in controversial circumstances. And I hadn't that sentence uttered, and Lance jumped in and said, but he never tested positive. And I thought, hold on here now. There was amphetamines found in Tom Simpson's pocket. There was amphetamines found in his bloodstream. There was amphetamines found in his suitcase back at the hotel. But Lance says he never tested positive. Now, why would Lance say that? And it was absolutely clear to me. Lance said that because as long as you didn't test positive, nobody could prove you used drugs. And that was going to be the mantra that would govern his entire cycling life. I passed the tests, you believe me. You have no right to ask questions beyond that. Obviously, I came from a different place. But the interview that day in Eastern France was almost ridiculous because I was asking questions which I thought were perfectly normal. And Lance was giving me ridiculous answers, but they weren't answers that proved he doped. For example, I would say, well, your best friend at the time, Kevin Livingston, he is part of a criminal investigation in Italy with Michele Ferrari. Have you discussed this with Kevin? And Lance would look at me and say, no, actually, I haven't discussed it. I said, he's your best friend. You share rooms with him. You go on 6-hour training rides with him. He's involved in a criminal investigation. And you haven't said, hey, Kev, what's all this about you and Ferrari? You've never said that. No, I've never said that. He said, there's lots of things we don't talk about. And I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, as I said, it wasn't proof that he doped, but it sure was proof that he could lie, because pretty much every answer he gave me, I felt, was a lie. He was telling me that I know nothing about doping. Basically, that was for 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half an interview. And I banged my head off a stone wall. And at the end of it, all I had was a sore head, because I didn't get any honesty from him at all. Maybe I went away with the sense of, you know what, you're going to have to keep digging here because this guy isn't going to give up anything voluntarily.
Can you ever see Lance Armstrong giving a kind of Frost-Nixon interview and admitting all that he's done over the years?
Lots of people wonder about whether Lance is going to do a tell-all interview, turn up on Oprah Winfrey or wherever, Letterman or Jill, and do his tell-all interview. I feel he has to do that to kind of rebuild his life because he's in a really bad place now. But the kind of practical difficulty he's got is that once he admits that he did dope, well, then the people are going after him to get money back that they paid to him. SCA Insurance Company, Sunday Times newspaper, US Postal, all their sponsorship. If he admits he doped, those cases are all immediately lost. He then has no defense. So I believe his lawyers are telling him now, sit tight, Lance. You cannot do that tell-all interview. But his life remains in a kind of a purgatory. Telling all might be hell for a certain amount of time, but it gives him a chance to kind of start climbing upwards out of there. Where he is now, he's stuck. And I hope that he's getting his financial stuff dealt with and he's going to do the tell-all interview and admit to all the sins of the past. Because until he does that, I don't think he has any kind of future worth having.
For more videos like this, go to youtube.com/GCN.